The next topic that we'll be talking about in ES6 is definitely one of my favorite, and it certainly falls in the category of syntactic changes in the language. So again, this is a change to the language that's just kind of making our code a little bit more legible so we just don't have to write out as much code over time. Okay? So let's start off by looking at how we declare JavaScript objects today, and then we're going to figure out how we can improve it using this new ES6 feature called Enhanced Object Literals. That's what we're going to be talking about in this section. So again, let's start off with a little bit of JavaScript, or ES5 to start. I'm going to make a function that creates a bookshop of sorts. So we're going to say that we're going to make a function and it's going to return an object that creates a bookshop. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it createBookshop, and we'll pass in some inventory for this bookshop. So some inventory like, say, a list of books, okay, like an array of books. From this object, or excuse me, from this function, we'll return an object that has some inventory. So this is what we actually pass into the function. We might have some inventory value, so a function that automatically calculates the total value of our inventory. And we'll come back and fill in the implementation there in just a second. And then maybe we've also got price for title. And the purpose of this function will be to say, if I give this a very particular title of a book, we should find the book in our inventory and then send it back or return it from this function. So let's actually make use of this function. We'll create some inventory. And we'll say that each book, which is forming my inventory, will have a title property, like say Harry Potter, and a price, like $10. And then we'll make one other book. Maybe we'll make it just Eloquent JavaScript with the price of 15. Then finally we can create our bookshop by saying create bookshop inventory. There we go. So now we've got our bookshop object right here. So my bookshop object is this object right here. And if I want to, we could call these different functions in here, which we'll implement in just a second. So let's go ahead and, heck, let's do it right now. So let's first do our inventory value. Now remember here, the goal that I'm trying to get at is talk about enhanced object literals. But as we're going through this topic, I just want to make sure that some topics that we spoke about earlier, like the array helpers, are still at the top of our mind. So we're going to do a little bit of rehashing here on some of the different helpers we spoke about previously. So we need to iterate through our entire list of books and find the total value or the total price for all the different books we have. In other words, we need to iterate over inventory and sum up the value of price. So it actually sounds like a pretty good use case of our reduce helper. Remember, the classic use case of reduce is summing up all the values in a list. So inside of our inventory value function, I'll return this.inventory .reduce, and then we'll use a fat arrow function in here just to keep the syntax nice and light. So I'll have total as the first argument. Remember, total is what gets passed through every run through reduce. And then we are going to have a second object, or excuse me, a second argument of an individual book. Then inside of here, we'll take our current total and add on book.price. And then we're also going to pass in a second argument to the reduce function, which is 0. And 0 is the starting value of our inventory. So by default, our value is starting off as 0. As we walk through the array, we're going to add on the price of each book until eventually we get the total price out of our entire inventory. And then for our next one, price for title, this seems like we need to take a given title, or excuse me, a given price, and produce the title from it. So kind of like a reverse lookup here. Actually, I think I reversed the name on this one, price for title. Yes, okay, I apologize. I worded that opposite. We want to take in a title and get the price for it. So that sounds like a fantastic use case of the find helper here. So let's take this.inventory.find, and then for every book we have, we'll look at the books until we find one with a title that was provided. This expression right here will return our book. And then so we want to get at the price. So we'll say dot price. Whew. All right, so like I said, want to make sure that all these array helpers are still staying in the forefront of our mind. So we've got a function here to get our total inventory value and then the price for a very specific title. So let's try those out now. I want to get my total inventory, which would be bookshop dot inventory value, and the value of our total inventory is 25. And we can also look up bookshop dot price for title, and then we need to pass in an actual title for a book here. So let's look up Harry Potter and find out what the price for it is. Harry Potter, and we get back 10 here as well. Okay, so a little bit of a digression there, but the point was I wanted to give you a very realistic looking object here. Something very realistic that we might actually have to write in a very real application. So at this point in time, we've got our function on the outside that returns an object that represents a bookstore. So there's nothing inherently bad or ugly about the code we've got written here. It all looks totally reasonable. But I want to remind you that a lot of the goals of parts of ES6 are just to reduce the total number of characters on the screen. So we literally want to just not have to duplicate code or write extra code whenever possible. So I want to draw your eyes to a couple things in particular about this function. First off, I want you to notice that inside the object that we return, we are writing the word inventory twice here. So we have a key and a value of inventory. And then on our inventory value and our price for title, in both cases, we've got the function keyword in here. So I'm not going to suggest that, these are really cluttering up our screen, but I'm going to suggest that, maybe the function keyword in a totally ideal world, maybe we would not have to write the full function keyword out here. Maybe we would have some other way to indicate to other engineers that the value of inventory value is a function. And that's where enhanced object literals come into play. So enhanced object literals are all about writing out object literals, like our bookstore object right here, in a more compact fashion. So there's two important rules I want to introduce you to. The first is whenever we make reference to a key and a value with the exact same name. So notice that the variable name is inventory and the key is inventory. With ES6, we can condense this down to just say inventory. Now, this doesn't change anything under the covers. We still have a key and a value of inventory here. They still exist, just the same as before. All that's happened is that we have condensed it down into a single statement. We're saying inventory just one time. Okay, so the general rule here is whenever I have a key and a value with the identical names, I can condense it down to just the variable name itself. Just one time, inventory. And I don't need any colons in between or anything like that. So the second improvement that we can make here is around the function keywords. So this is another area where, you might be rolling your eyes here thinking, how bad is it to write function, right? Like how bad is it to just write the function keyword in there? Yeah, it's not that bad, but is it really doing anything for us? Is it improving our code in any way? Maybe, maybe not. And so with enhanced object literals, whoever put the ES6 spec together, they said, yeah, I'm just tired of writing out function. I just don't want to do any more. And so they said that if you have a key value pair where the value is a function, you can omit the function keyword and the colon as well. Okay, so that's the second rule that we have. If we have a key value pair where the value is a function, we can omit both the colon and the function keyword. So I'm going to delete everything from the colon to the end of function, like so. And so you'll notice that over on the right-hand side, our code is complete, or the result of our code, I should say, is completely unchanged. Everything is completely identical. All we've done here is slightly compacted our code just a little bit. So let's continue the next section. This looks good, what we have here. Let's continue the next section and talk a little bit more about maybe another a little bit of a refactor that we can do here. So let's continue on.